An international break is upon us. The U.S. men have two friendlies coming up. On Saturday, they will face Canada in Kansas City, then Tuesday, New Zealand in Cincinnati. These will be the first U.S. senior games since the disastrous Copa America campaign, which cost Greg Berhalter his job. We know Mauricio Pochettino will be the replacement, but as of this taping, Wednesday afternoon, he has not officially signed. So under 20 boss Mikey Veras will coach the team on an interim basis. I'll go through the roster in a minute, but overall thoughts on these two games.
Okay, so this was supposed to be the new beginning. This was supposed to be, after the incredible failure of the summer and the firing of Greg Berhalter, this turning of a page. And again, I think I mentioned this in previous pods right now. As we sit here recording this, we are 645 days, I think, away from the 2026 World Cup. And after this week, we are in this FIFA window right now, there will be 9 FIFA international windows, which equates to 18 games. And of course, next summer, where we will have a Gold Cup, and who knows, maybe another 7 games. But let's be honest, few of those will be against high-quality opponents. But that's what is left in terms of the preparation for the 26 World Cup. And so yet another window is going to be, I'm going to say wasted. Maybe that's a little harsh, but another window is going to be wasted. And what I thought was going to be the moment of, all right, let's go, is now being postponed again, because to your point, they still haven't officially named Mauricio Pochettino. And I would have liked for him to have used this. Now, he might be doing things behind the scenes. That's very, very possible. But don't ask me to care about Mikey Veras. That's his name, right?
Correct.
Okay. Don't ask me to care about Mikey Veras and what he is doing with this national team.
Well, and the shame of it is, if Berhalter was still the coach or Pochettino had already stepped in, a game against Canada and Jesse Marsch would have had some real juice because of their semifinal run at the Copa America. And speaking of cheating scandals, everything that's going on with Canada. But to your point, with Mikey Veras on the bench, I don't know that this game has that much significance.
Do you think that the United States Federation did not want Pochettino's first game to be against Canada and the possible embarrassment that would happen?
No, I don't think that was a part of it.
Really?
You think they're stalling him stepping in to avoid facing mighty Canada and New Zealand?
I mean, if his first game in charge ends up being this team losing to Canada, which is certainly possible given the strength of Canada and where they are right now, they're flying under Jesse Marsch. That would not be a good look for him or for the Federation. So I don't know. Maybe I have my tinfoil on here. All right, let's get into some of the
After watching Sign Stealer, you've got conspiracy.
That's true.
So to go through the roster, there are some notable absences. Timmy Weah, Tyler Adams, and Sergiño Dest all out injured, while Wesson McKennie, Jedi Robinson, Cameron Carter-Vickers, and Tanner Tessman weren't called up because of minor ailments and because this time was, I guess, better spent with their clubs, it was deemed. I don't know what old man on the porch Alexi Lalas thinks of that, players skipping international games. But in terms of the roster, 24 names, 4 goalkeepers, Matt Turner, Ethan Horvath, Patrick Schulte, and young Diego Cochin, a teenager who's part of the Barcelona B setup. Incidentally, Matt Turner now plays for Crystal Palace. He got himself a move from Forest to Palace late in the window. He's projected to be the number 2, but he'll try to challenge Dean Henderson for the starting job. I suspect he'll start these games for the U.S.
Why do you suspect that? I mean, is this not a proving ground or a test for others out there? I mean, I look, if this was a meaningful game, then not that it's not meaningful, but yeah, I would understand why. Matt Turner, again, is not necessarily a starter when he is moving on here to Crystal Palace. Don't know much about Diego Cochin. Is that how we're going to pronounce it?
Yeah.
That's good. That's good enough. If he makes the ultimate roster here, because they have 4 goalkeepers, and we've seen Ethan Horvath, we've seen Patrick Schulte, and obviously we've seen Matt Turner. I think the real interest for me, if I have to if I have to come up with some interesting things, it's any type of new names that are going to be used. And when I say used, not just on the roster, but on the field. So from a defender standpoint, Marlon Fossey from Standard Liège, because he plays right back, and there's a potential there, especially with Dest continuing to be out with his injury. And I'm still not sold necessarily on Scally on that right-hand side. And then more importantly for me, up top, which that number 9 position still looms large. We finally have kind of everybody. And yes, they are usual suspects, but everybody is healthy up top. So those would be the 2 things that I would be looking at.
Just to amend what I said, I think Turner starts against Canada, but you're right. I could see another one of the goalkeepers starting against New Zealand. And yeah, at the back, you've got neither Jedi Robinson or Serginho Dest, so a possibility for some new players to emerge. Marlon Fossey, 25-year-old Standard Liège, him and Scally are the right backs. Christopher Lund and Caleb Wiley are the left backs. And then you've got 4 center backs, Tim Ream, who we know is now in MLS, Chris Richards, Mackenzie, and Austin Trusty. So how do you see that? I'm actually somewhat surprised Tim Ream is on this list. I thought maybe it might be time to move on from him, but I guess not.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to learn anything new about these players. Again, if and when the new coach comes in, I think part of their job, if it's Pochettino, fine, is to make the players that we have better, individually and collectively. I don't think we're necessarily going to see that. Maybe there is a breath of fresh air and a release that happens in a new camp, even though the head coach isn't there. But I'm not going to learn anything new about Tim Ream.
I agree. Trusty's a guy I'm curious to see. He just moved from Sheffield United to Celtic, but I continue to say that center back is the most underwhelming position in the whole talent pool. In the midfield with no McKennie or Adams, it's an opportunity for Johnny Cardoso. He's in there along with Yunus Musa, Luca De La Torre, Aiden Morris, and then Gio Reyna and Malik Tillman presumably are your 10s.
What's the deal with Johnny right now? What's going on there with your friend?
Yeah, so Real Betis acquired Giovanni Lo Celso, Argentinian midfielder from Tottenham, and as part of the deal, Tottenham obtained first option on Johnny Cardoso. Now, what that means, I had to do some digging here, but what that means is that next summer, there's a 2-week window where Tottenham can sign Johnny Cardoso for £21 million. So they'll have this exclusive 2-week window where if they want to activate that option, they can have him for £21 million. Once that 2 weeks goes by, then it's done.
But the 2-week window is not an official designated window from FIFA or anything like that. It's just put into a contractual
just agreed
situation
to between
say
the clubs.
This is a window.
So it could be something, could be nothing. It depends on what kind of season Johnny has at Betis and what Tottenham's needs are next summer. We'll see. But that was a curious clause to include in that Lo Celso.
But it's a clause that signifies his value.
Yeah.
So it's a good thing.
They clearly like him as a player because they wouldn't have inserted that clause otherwise.
All right. Up top, knock on wood, Josh Sargent, who's scoring goals, is healthy and there. And I guess, only one of these guys between Flo, Ricardo Pepi, who's there, and Josh Sargent can start.
Honestly, we talked about this this summer. Now, the roster got expanded to 26, so it wasn't that big of an issue. But I do find it odd that you have 3 center forwards plus Haji Wright, who we know can play at center forward. At some point, they're going to have to make a decision, probably pick 2 out of 3 of Balogun, Pepe, and Sargent. Just from a roster composition standpoint, in any kind of short tournament scenario, I don't know that you need to carry 3 center forwards plus Haji Wright, who's nominally a winger but can play as a center
Someone's
forward.
An odd man out at some point.
Yeah.
Get back to your point about players not here because it could mess up their club situation. I get that you lose the battle and win the war if you are looking at you want your players playing. You want them playing consistently. I just told you how few windows you have and how few games you have, and so therefore a player playing is more valuable to you. But in this case, you're missing a window, but you're not missing a window with the actual coach. So I'm okay with this one. Had Pochettino been the coach, I think it would have been problematic. And again, it's a delicate balance that federations and obviously coaches and technical directors and all that kind of stuff have to play, and the relationship that you have with the club. And you don't want to do anything that's going to screw up a player from a club perspective, especially when they're new to the club, that is going to hurt them and therefore devalue the player for when you finally get them to the national team. I get that.
I do wonder, Reyna is listed as a midfielder, but with Timmy Weah out, I could see Reyna playing as a winger in one of these games, maybe starting Pulisic, Reyna, and Balogun as your front 3, and maybe Tillman as the 10 with Johnny and Yunus Musa sitting. I just think, now would be the time to take advantage of that Gio Reyna flexibility. I don't think he should be tethered to that number 10 position.
Do you look at Haji Wright as a 9 or as a winger?
It's kind of a hybrid. I mean, he
Yeah.
keeps getting called up as a winger, but I think he's just as much a 9 as he is a winger. And we should mention on Gio, late in the window, Eric Winalda's former club, Bochum, evidently wanted to take him on loan, and Dortmund said no. They decided they either were going to sell him permanently this summer or keep him. So Gio ends up sticking around with Dortmund.
All right, quickly before we move on, I guess this would be for the next window, but if it's Pochettino, he comes in. Oftentimes you see the new coach boost, right? And what is that? How does that manifest? Well, you have players that have been around, and there's a new sheriff in town. And we've all, as players, been there where there is a new coach. And you want to come in. It doesn't matter how long you've been there. You want to make sure that you put your best foot forward and that you impress from the start. And so players that either have been out of it, now they have an opportunity to get back into it. And players that have been in and have been the chosen ones out there, they got to prove that they are worth it. And this is a good thing. This is oftentimes why you make a change, because the players weren't motivated enough. And we've seen the players talk about what Greg Berhalter had done, but then what hadn't been done. And you hope that it lights a fire going forward for all these players in that next window.
The next window, if those happen to be Pochettino's first 2 games, it's against Panama and Austin, against Mexico and Guadalajara. So that's a tasty one for Pochettino to manage. We should note we'll be doing spaces after each of these games in this window, against Canada on Saturday and New Zealand on Tuesday.
Live over there on X. We'll have spaces. They'll show up in your feed. So if you're not on X, it's okay. But we will be doing that for the instant reaction to these games. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops twice a week right here on my very own YouTube page. The only way to stay up to date is to hit that subscribe button down below. Size the day, and see you soon.